By the way, Sierra, Final Fantasy 14. I will point out that is the one Final Fantasy I have not played. It's 14. I played all the rest. Well, except for some ones that weren't released here, but that's beside the point. Some landscape reminds me of Stellar Blade, just slightly. What, you're telling me all the desert of Stellar Blade makes you remind you of another desert? I mean, they put a butt ton of desert in Stellar Blade. And realistically, I like the fact they did put some variety in it later down the line. That was cool. Now, if you've been watching some of this, they did have a swamp area that was pretty freaking awesome. I like the moodiness and whatnot. And the Junon area was a little bit different. But I don't think we've gotten to certain areas in this game yet. This game looks pretty nice. I've never played Final Fantasy. Okay, well, if you never played a Final Fantasy, it's a toss-up. If you're gonna play a Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy VII Remake are both very good games. They don't require too much crazy strategy. There's a little bit of action, so it's easier to get into. Remake is fairly linear, meaning you can only explore certain areas and you have to follow the story. 16, there's open world sections, but you don't wander the whole world, which seems kind of limited at first, but it's not that bad. It just cuts down on monotonous running around and there's fast travel. So it's not that bad, but the music, the story, the characters, the graphics in 16 is crazy. I think the reason why Final Fantasy VII does so well is because they have good character development that was from the bad old days when they weren't afraid to do some variety and interesting character. What are you doing? So both Rebirth and Remake are different. If they're okay. The original. Here, hold on. Let me get on my soapbox. Let me turn this down just a little. Okay. Final Fantasy VII, the original, was a big deal. We went from having one cartridge, but they wouldn't put it on the N64 because Square was pissed off that Nintendo went cartridges and they wanted to do full motion video and all this other cool stuff. The cartridges were so limited in size capacity, they couldn't pull off what they wanted. There was a demo for Final Fantasy VII, but they used the Final Fantasy VI characters where they were fighting a golem with Locke, Edge, and Celis. And it was a tech demo, and it was pretty cool. It took everything they had to make that demo, and it just was not... It was okay, but they wanted to do more. Sony came out and said, hey, we want to do the CD thing. They broke up Nintendo. Nintendo wanted to stay with cartridge. Sony got pissed off. They spent all this money on it, so they decided to develop in their own console. The Sony sound chip is what's in the SNES, and that's what made it great versus the Genesis. When they had cheap, plentiful space on a disc, Square took advantage of it. They decided, right almost when the system launched, 3 CDs for a game for a console. Remake is disc 1. Rebirth is disc 2. The last one, whatever they're going to call it, is disc 3. Now, mind you, disc 3 was fairly short. So I don't know what they're doing about it, but again, they fleshed these out a whole lot more than they originally thought, to be honest with you. So you want to do Remake, then do Rebirth. Do not be surprised if you get confused. There's some weird shenanigans going on with Rebirth. It was not originally in the OG. That's got some multiverse type of crazy stuff going on with Zack. That makes no sense whatsoever. What other option did they have other than cartridges at the time? Because this weren't a thing yet, right? No, they totally... N64 was coming out. PlayStation was coming out. Nintendo had a partnership with Nintendo. They were going to make a CD add-on to the to their console. They were going to make it a CD thing. Nintendo decided against it. They're like, no, we don't like it. We can't protect our stuff. We can't control the actual media. People are going to pirate our games and stuff. So that was part of it. But also Nintendo wanted to use cartridge because it was faster than CD-ROM. So it's a difference of philosophies. Nintendo was always about efficiency and speed, and Square saw what they could get away with CD, and it didn't cost as much, and they didn't have to pay this crazy cartridge. Yeah. There's stuff out there. If you look for it, you can find that prototype system that they had out there. And from that point on, Square said, screw you, Nintendo, and we never got any Square games at all up until recently. And it was a big deal because a lot of people jumped ship from Nintendo because they love Square games. I did both. But you had, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy IV. I forget what other games you had on the Nintendo. Like, Square made it on Nintendo. But it's hilarious because now it's coming full circle. They didn't make enough money to pay for this junk on the PlayStation because they didn't sell enough consoles, like 50, 60 million consoles. So Switch 2, guess what's coming to Switch 2? All the Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy Remake's going to come to... They haven't announced it, but we know it's happening. Final Fantasy Remake, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and do not be surprised if the third one comes for it too. You should do a tour of your room and throw it on YouTube. Well, I have to be very careful about that. Because you can't see it, but I have a bunch of very identifying stuff in my room that I would have to either cover or take down because I'm obviously trying to protect my identity, right? And you don't want people trying to figure out where you're at and people get weird about it and whatnot. But yes, but if I do it, and I do set up Patreon, I'm going to do it for my Patreon people first, right? Right? Yeah, that's right. Trust me. There's some people that I forget what her name was. Something Snacks. It was this Asian lady. She used her actual name, and then she got big, and then she decided to change her over to a different, just a no-name name instead of her actual name because people are probably trying to stalk her and stuff. And there's people, who is it, Pokemon or something like that? She wouldn't post any pictures of her house, was very careful about it, because people would do weird stuff to try to figure out where she lives. You got to be very careful, man. I'll be there if you set it up. Trust me. I'm looking into it. I'm just trying to figure it out because I was seeing people were complaining about the fees. I think there's a competing one out there. I just got to do a comparison as to what are the rules and regulation and what kind of fees are we looking at? What are we looking at, right? So I'm going to look into it. But I'm also thinking about making other content and whatnot that is based on stuff I've done and is kind of talking in more of a normal YouTube thing you would see, in addition to my gameplay stuff, that I would probably show to my Patreon and subscribers first before I would show it to the general public. Simply because it'll be searchable, maybe help me grow, but also it gives back to people that are generally interested that show up all the time. Like yourself. I don't know if SatX on Rumble would end up getting into that. Hard to say about Scroll Rush. He hasn't been around in a while, but I think he's been busy. He's been sucked into Dragon Ball Z Sparkling Zero. And some Pokemon. Which, by the way, I did have a recommendation for Pokemon, but I'm not doing that right now. Pokemon runs like junk because they don't know how to optimize. So, if I do Pokemon, I'll probably wait until the Switch 2, where it might run halfway decent. So, past that, anything else about Final Fantasy? But 16 is pretty darn good. And the great news is, since it wasn't, which is really weird, well received, the sad part is if you play 16 and you play 7 Remake, you're going to be spoiled. I mean, right now, I'll be honest, they're the pinnacle of the Final Fantasy. The other ones, if you play the older ones, like 13, it was like this. You could roam and stuff and go in the countryside, but the driving the vehicle was stuck to roads for the most part, right? And it was only the 4 guys, which was okay, but it's not as interesting as cast of characters you have here, right? And it wasn't as interesting as the cast of characters you would have got like on Final Fantasy 12 or Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 6, all those games, right? You have all those type of games. Now, some of those are going to be potentially, I think, remade to a higher extent. I'm just not sure. I got my daughter a huge Pikachu stuffy a couple days ago. She didn't know about Pikachu before, but she sure does now. Yeah, and the cool thing about Pokemon is there's a multitude of the show that they can watch, which is really cool, from the early 90s. So you can see all that cool stuff and enjoy it and binge it and have a good time. You're not sitting there doing stuff without even have to play a game if you wanted to, which is nice. Just be careful. Don't get her into the Pokemon cards if you can, because that could be an addiction and or very costly endeavor. So watch on that. But the Pokemon games, some of the new Pokemon games, they have some performance issues, but I think going forward, once they sort those out, they're going to be more open world and more like what you would think when you watch the show, that you can roam and try to catch them in the wild and things like that. The older games weren't like that. They were random, like old RPG things, and it wasn't as, it was more linear, right? So the series is evolving closer to the TV show, which is cool. I think I've been getting the Bluey game to play for. The game is good. Be mindful. It is short. Beat the game in 3 hours. Just saying. But out of all the OG games, it's the one I would recommend the most. I will point out the Trolls game was a pretty good game. It took me 4 streams to beat it. The platforming was solid. There was power-ups. The first level was a little rough because you kind of could get a little lost, but I have gameplays of it. So if she's interested, she could also do that too. Past that, rest of the OG games, they're limited. The loading times are horrific. Just, I did the work for parents, so you don't have to suffer. Oh, God. Yeah, just check out my YouTube. You'll see the gameplays under there. Because I ended up doing... What did I end up doing? Let's see. I did Bluey, Paw Patrol the movie, Paw Patrol Mighty Pups, which is when they have superpowers, 2 different Peppa Pigs, and the Trolls game. Plus, there was a racing Blaze game or something like that. The racing wasn't too bad, but it was a racing game. It's like, I'd rather play Mario Kart, right? Unless you're a big Blaze fan. But honestly, I thought it was a wasted opportunity. They could have done something really special with the IP. They phoned it in. So. Alright. Time to get back in the saddle again. The Peppa the Pig game. I have 2 of them on there. The second one is very short. I think I beat that in like an hour and a half. But they might also be hard to find because I think they stopped making them. So be mindful. If you can't find it and she really wants to see it, I do have gameplays. She can binge on that. Which would probably... I mean, my little one watches all my stuff. But hilariously enough, you know what my little one's interested in watching? My Zeldas and my Final Fantasy. Go figure. Can't wait for Switch to dive into all the Zelda games. If you do, I highly recommend you do Breath of the Wild first before you do Tears of the Kingdom. Because it'll give you some backstory and understanding, but also it's just good in general. Games they have on the Switch that aren't on the service where you have to pay for it is Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Skyward Sword. You should really play Skyward Sword probably before you play the other ones for somewhat understanding some of the story. The ones that people are missing out on that were on the Wii U that they have not brought, and I have a feeling they may bring that out for Switch 2 to hold things over, is Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. And the reason why, I hear rumors. Supposedly. Well, hold on. I'm going to have to do this again. Sorry. My rumor I'm hearing with the Switch is there's hardware built into the dock. There's fans built into the dock. There's a pass-through through the dock. And that the screen is 1080p. Yes, LCD. they will either A, render at a lower resolution and upscale slightly on the system to give you better performance and power, and or they'll just leave it. And then when you put it in the dock, they can overclock the chip, they can cool it better, and that'll give you the performance you need to get better. And then they'll, in addition to that, do upscale to be able to provide you 4K. They may also have some stuff in there in regard to texturing and stuff that Nintendo had. So there's a possibility what they might do is instead of coming out with an HD Twilight Princess, they either might come out with a remake or a 4K model or something like that instead of what came out on the Wii U, which would be great because Twilight Princess is a pretty good game. It was just sparse in certain areas, but it was so limited. So if they remade it and it wouldn't take too much work, they really could make that game amazing. It's got some pretty cool stuff. My favorite game is probably Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, only because it holds up well today. You can get into it. You cannot get lost in it because it has a map. It points you in the right direction. It was one of the games that I think first did that. You know, hey, this is where you need to go so you don't get lost. And it had some story. The graphics were amazing. They were doing the Mode 7 scaling for the map. And the gameplay was great. And when you unlock something in the dungeon, it helped you complete the dungeon. And then it gave you different abilities to unlock different areas, which was cool. I mean, it was pretty interesting of a game. Right up there, I would have to say my second probably favorite game has to be Breath of the Wild, simply because, again, is like trend setting. Being able to go anywhere, climb anything, the weather effects, the fact that in your lightning storm, you throw a metal sword at a monster, they'll get struck by lightning and you can laugh at them. It's hilarious. The fact that if it's raining, don't even try to climb that cliff unless you have special equipment because you're just going to slip right off, right? Or, hey, I'm in this certain area. If I roll this boulder down, I can run people over and not have to fight them. Like, just the amount of physics and various other things was really cool. And a lot of games patterned after it. And to be honest, the fact they were able to do it in that game was amazing. But it built on previous games, right? Tears of the Kingdom is interesting. It's got a lot of areas, the building mechanics and things like that. You can go wild and crazy on it. The issue for some people of Tears of the Kingdom is you're still retreading the original map. And so it might not feel super new, but there's new areas or whatever. My personal feeling on it is just the fact that there are certain misses on Tears of the Kingdom that if you don't look it up, you could get stuck in the game, which I didn't have that problem in Breath of the Wild. Have you played Immortal Phoenix Rising from Ubisoft? I have not. I heard it's like Zelda and it's got some pretty good dialogue on it. I think I have it. I thought I bought it. Did I buy it for PlayStation? I guess it didn't buy it yet. I guess I have it in my cart or something like that. Yes, it was heavily inspired. My biggest selling point I've heard from that game is the dialogue is hilarious. From my understanding from that game, like that's what really sells it, is the dialogue and the jokes and stuff. That'll be another one I'll want to pick up and play. Obviously, I need to get that. I'm sure I can get it for like dirt cheap, right? Much so cheap. Actually, I saw some other games out there that were like $15. It's just, and that's when you strike, because I don't know if you know this or not. Sony has decided they're going to stop making Blu-rays. Now, they own Crunchyroll, and they want to sell Blu-rays of anime. I would not be too surprised if they stopped doing that. And since they don't make the system now with an actual player, I would not be surprised if they don't have one for PlayStation 6. Xbox was probably not going to have one. So the only system that's going to have physical games where you actually own something is going to be Nintendo. And what's really scary is that might mean all your movies, all your games that are out there, if they're cheap now, they're going to go up because then people won't be able to get them anymore because they don't make them anymore. And you won't be able to make copies because they're not making the media much anymore. So the concern is going to be Um, when you're stuck with Netflix and they pull things off and you don't always have access to a show and you're screwed, you're going to be, oh, dude, it's going to be upsetting. We'll see how upset people were when Office got pulled off Netflix, right? I mean, GameFly is going to probably go away or have to change because it's not going to be able to do anything. And so you're going to own nothing and like it, which is not going to be great. And so if you have a little extra disposable income and you see games cheap, you should buy them now. That's always been my mantra. Don't buy when it's expensive when it first comes up unless you absolutely really want to play something. Buy it when it's cheap, collect it, hold on to it, and if you want to share with your friends or play it later, whatever, great. But if you wait until later, it's going to be too late, and then you're going to be stuck with something digital potentially. Because I do not see Sony doing anything more. But the hilarious part is if Sony starts making games on the Switch, and there's a high possibility if the price of like cartridges come down, Sony might have to actually switch the cartridge. What's the irony in that? That Sony has to goes back to potentially cartridges because they need physical media and it's a big thing and Nintendo gets big and they feel like they got to do what Nintendo does. And so they don't lose market because not everyone has good internet, right? I could totally see them doing little cartridges, try to make money on that or do whatever, because you can get cartridges that are huge that'll plenty handle the games, and they'll be plenty fast. But it'll be hilarious because it'll be a complete 360 on Nintendo and Sony basically going their separate ways, and then they just come back around to the bottom of the circle, which is hilarious. They have Saints Row, Steelbook Edition of Civ 50 Logo Marvel, but I already own the physical, but I'm thinking about getting it just because of the price. I mean, here's the thing. Buy it and sell it. If you already have it, right? There are people that buy stuff at Walmart when they're in clearance, and then they just resell them, like on Amazon or whatever. I'm not joking. And it's mainly because Walmart buys a whole bunch of stuff. They don't sell a whole bunch. And at a certain point, they got to clear inventory. It's just the way they got to do it, right? I'm pretty sure they're not losing money on the deal. I wouldn't think, but I could be wrong. They could be doing a write-off on it. But yeah, totally. But, you know, from time to time, check your games you're interested in, you know, and check Best Buy and everything else. If you really want to do it, because Best Buy will match Amazon, use Camel, and you can set up alerts for certain items. Do it for certain games and tell it to email you when it reaches below a certain threshold. That way you don't have to keep an eye on it, and it'll email you when games drop to like next to nothing. Because a lot of times when games are cheap, the various people match each other. So, but not always. I thought that Stellar Blade, they got one copy for $26. It's like $50 or $60 everywhere else. Yeah, I'm telling you. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much longer a lot of those companies are going to actually have games in the store. They're already getting rid of a whole bunch of music and everything else in there. I think they're going to end up just getting rid of some of the media that there, and they might just have like accessories and the systems themselves, because that's all they're going to be able to sell. If they're going all digital, about the only person that's going to be able to do anything is going to be Nintendo. Think about it. You walk down the PlayStation aisle, what are you going to be able to buy? Can you buy games? No. The only thing you can buy is maybe the PlayStation Network cards and, you know, the controllers and accessories and stuff. Same with Xbox. What are you going to buy with Nintendo? It's going to be all games. So that's also going to make a very interesting thing when regular parents go shopping for the holidays, and the only people that have games locally is going to be them. So it's either going to push people to Roblox and do certain things for the younger kids, or I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So, well, trust me, I know I was incredibly hurt when CDs left stores. I have over 2,000 CD collection. I'm a huge music lover. Yes, but the difference with music, you can take that collection, you can rip that collection and play it digitally. You don't have to like physically move the CDs around, and so you don't wear them out, but you still have the discs if you need. You get the convenience and the ownership. We don't 100% get that luxury when it comes to games. If you have a disc, you got to put it in to play it. If you have the cartridge, you have to put it in to be able to play. And that's so you're not stealing it. So that's the only downside about that is, yeah, I have to do that, but let's be real. How often do you really sit there and switch between games all the time? Rarely. You're usually between a handful of games, if that. Maybe you have a game for when the boys come over or whatever, and you're playing Mario Kart, Mario Party, maybe you're playing some other stuff. Okay, fine. And then when you're sitting and it's just you and you want to play something, you're putting in your Final Fantasy, you're putting in your GTA 5. Yes, I have not forgot that game. You know, oh yeah, that's another thing. Did you hear about GTA 6? They're going to try to charge $150 for the game because with inflation, that's like what $50 games were back in the 90s. And then they were like, well, we might do $100 for the game. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? They're trying to jack us up, man. And the funny thing about it is they're blowing up their budgets unnecessarily for stuff that people might not care about. And then you'll see someone come out with Power World or, you know, various other things, not spend hardly any money, build something that'll beat these expensive games. And then they wonder why they can make massive profits, which is hilarious. I've been playing Lies of P's lately, though. We're excited for Kingdom Come Deliverance next week. We'll see how that goes. I'm not entirely sure about that game. I'll have to look at trailers. That's one thing you do have when you're not a streamer that makes me kind of jealous, but kind of not, is I don't play much off stream. What you see is what you get. I play 9 hours a week of these games. I don't play them off stream. I was talking about doing it, but then my editor told me, as well as other people, they were afraid that what if I did something and it was hilarious and we missed out on it, right? And you guys got to miss my struggle. That no, don't you dare do off-stream stuff like that. Like, okay. So there's that. One of the things is, you know, when you got a game you like, I do miss the freedom when you can just pick it up and play whenever you have time and whatever you want to do it, which is great. But time being a thing, I've made it a point that when I have time off on the weekend or whatever, I'm doing stuff for the family. I'm doing stuff for the house. I'm doing those type of things. I'm at work, I'm doing work. Kids are in bed, the Magus will play. So, it's just time management, setting aside time just to play games because it's incredibly hard. You would be surprised how many other people are unable to play games because they just don't have time. And a lot of times they're not fortunate enough where they can do that because maybe they're working 2 jobs and whatnot. And that's also part of the reason why I stream. You know, maybe you're dealing with a family illness and you're taking care of someone and you just can't really devote the time. You have to take care of someone. When I was taking care of my little one and was doing something for the wife, health issues, I was watching DB Geek play Zelda for the first time, and it was incredibly helpful. And I've seen that I've been able to provide entertainment and comfort to people and put a smile on their face, and that is more than enough. If I can make money on the way, let's go. But if not, you know, okay, you know, hard to find time. It is. When you're a kid, you got all the time in the world. True, but the difference is with the new games, they're more forgiving on when you can save and when you can put it in rest mode or walk away. So it's a lot easier to pick up games between free time, whereas the older games, they were not as forgiving. A good example of that is, if I didn't have that save state on that original Legend of Zelda thing, I could have lost a whole mess of time because I wanted to turn the game off, but there was no real way to save. Oh. And then the original Final Fantasy games, they had save points, but you had to get through these ridiculously hard areas to be able to save. And so it was a thing back then. You're like, Mom's like, I'm to dinner or whatever. And you're like, I'm trying to save. And so you'd either let the game run and run up the clock so you wouldn't lose anything, or you be stressed trying to get to that next level so you can at least slave or go to bed, or if you got to go somewhere. And the Switch somewhat changed a lot of that because it's portable. If you like what you heard or the discussion that you saw here, make sure to subscribe and follow to the channel. I have various gamer talks that come out from time to time, and so if you are, then you'll know with the bell notification when these various talks come out and whatnot. And again, feel free to also come watch my live streams. Have a discussion with me, because I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 9:30 at twitch.tv/gamewithmagus. Also stream on YouTube, Rumble, and Kick. And of course, if you follow my social medias, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or X, you're going to know when my schedule changes or if anything happens. But also, you can use those platforms to make suggestions on games you'd like to see me play in the future, or just have a discussion. But until next time, stay adventurous.